For changes to the agenda, so we'll hear them in the order they're on the agenda. I don't have any announcements or appeals. Ms. Brooke, can you think of any announcements? No.
Said my only announcement.
Okay, so there's no announcements or appeals. There's no one in the audience, so there's no comments from members on items not on our today's agenda. So we will start with item number 1, which is 26 Chapala Street. Anytime you're ready, Ms. Gans.
Okay. 26 Chapala Street. This 10,000 square foot site is located at the corner of Mason and Chapala Streets in the R4 SD3 zone. It's currently developed with a 5,602 square foot, 11 unit apartment building, which is non-conforming with 11 parking spaces. Setbacks for the zone are 10 feet on the 2 front yards and 6 feet on the 2 interior yards. The proposed project includes replacement of all windows along here, which will legalize enforcement violation, and a proposal to widen the second-story balcony along this area here and add a little porch wall on the inside of that, and then associated support columns and a roof extension, and then also a revised landscape plan, and then repaving and restriping the parking lot to be ADA compliant. The project was reviewed by the Historic Landmarks Commission on June 24th and July 7th of 2010 and was continued to the staff hearing officer with positive comments. Zoning modifications are being requested because the new entry arch column in this area here will encroach 11 inches into the 10-foot front setback on Mason Street. And then these proposed column supports for the new facade will encroach a total of 33 square feet into non-conforming outdoor living space. And on a site visit, staff noted an illegal trash enclosure constructed within the front yard setback on Mason Street, which is not reflected on these plans here. The archive plans show the area as a landscape planter, and no subsequent permits exist for permitting this walled enclosure. Although it's not called out as a condition of approval in my staff report, staff recommends a condition that the applicant either reduce the height of the walls within the setback to 42 inches and identify an alternate location for trash storage outside of the setbacks, or apply for zoning modification to allow the overheight walls to remain. In either case, however, the trash receptacles in here are not allowed to be stored within setbacks, and an alternate location needs to be called out on the plans. Staff position that the proposed project is supportable because the encroachments are minimal and will not provide additional floor area or impact existing parking. The overall appearance of the building will be improved and will be an enhancement to the neighborhood, and the new permeable paving, which doesn't require zoning modification, will allow increased stormwater retention on site. Staff requests approval of the project as proposed with the added condition regarding the trash enclosure and making the findings that the modifications are consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot and to promote a uniform improvement on the lot by upgrading the aesthetics of the building.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
The applicant's not here, but I do have some questions that I can ask of you, and if they
Okay.
show up, they can provide any additional comments. First, I'd like to open the public hearing, and seeing no one in the audience, have we received any correspondence or phone calls?
I had one phone call from Sarah Hardigan across the street at 103 Chapala Street, and she just was inquiring as to the nature of the project. And she wanted to make sure the roof wasn't going to get any taller. So I
Okay.
explained this added roof overhang, but it's not going to make the ridge tall, any higher.
Okay, great, thank you. Are you the applicant?
No.
Oh, the next project, okay. So I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site also, and I noticed the trash enclosure there, and was wondering if it was, existing situation, because I saw in the staff report how it talked about modifications being approved previously for the parking lot area.
Right.
So that was good information. The other question I had was the parking lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So with the improvements, it's still going to be 11.
At 11. It's 21 is required, but it's non-conforming, and they are not adding any floor area. So.
All right. And then currently, I didn't see any private areas or usable areas other than a balcony in this up front here. So currently, although this technically meets our definition of the open area, it's not really usable.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then, this area here is a walkway.
Uh-huh.
These column supports, or the columns here, will, that's why they're asking for a modification, because it's reducing that amount. Mm-hmm. But I think it's actually going to be nicer and more usable anyway, because on the upper level, if you go to the
there's a second floor
plan, this area here is the extension.
All right.
And then they're going to build a 42-inch high wall right here, and what it's going to do is, I think, create little patio areas for the apartments. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be an enhancement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, the current area where they're proposing the the columns, it's really not usable. It's just the open area.
Correct. These are existing planters, and they're crumbling and breaking apart. So it will definitely be an enhancement to what is there now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are you here for the first item? Are you here for the first item?
I'm here for the second item.
Okay, so it's 10002 North Milpas Street?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure because I've closed the public hearing, so I wanted to reopen it if you're here for the first one. But go ahead and have a seat in the audience.
Yes, thank you.
So, all right. Well, like I said, I went out to the site, drove around the neighborhood, read the staff report. I think it's a supportable project. As you've noted, the front setback modifications, it enhances the architectural facade of the building. It doesn't add any floor area in the setback. In regards to the modification for the open yard area, I think it also adds a benefit to the project and is an appropriate improvement because it adds those private outdoor areas. And although they don't meet our minimum dimensions, it is some area outside that the tenants can enjoy. So the project is supportable. I'd like to change the findings, though, add some additional discussion in them. Something to the fact, currently, the first sentence talks about they're consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The second sentence I'd like to change and just indicate, it says the architectural thickening of the wall and addition of columns are minimal and will not provide additional floor area, and then cross off the rest of the sentence and add within the setback, and then add discussion regarding the minor encroachment into the non-conforming private outdoor living space, provides balcony space on the second floor to be used as a private outdoor living space for tenants or something in that regards, just to reflect that the fact that the encroachment into the private outdoor living space, there is a trade-off that it is, planter area right now, and they are providing some private areas for the tenants. So,
Okay. Do that.
So with that, I'll approve the project, making the findings as revised, and then also adding the condition of approval that you stated regarding the trash enclosure.
Very good.
So my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they warrant, or if they believe this warrants additional discussion before them, they can call it up during that same 10-day period.
Great.
And if the applicant happens to be watching, if either of those instances would occur, Ms. Gantz would contact you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is 10002 North Milpas Street. If the applicant would like to come up to the table. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'll stamp these and then give them to you. Anytime you're ready. Good morning. Anytime.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Joanne LeConte, Assistant Planner. The project site is located on approximately a 6,730 square foot lot at the corner of North Milpas and Carrillo Streets. The property is zoned R3 and is currently developed with an approximately 1,551 square foot, one-story single-family residence and a detached 239 square foot garage. The project was heard before the Single Family Design Board on October the 11th, 2010, and was forwarded to the staff hearing officer with positive comments. The project involves grading, the removal of 2 walls and a fence in this location here, and then construction of a new 8-foot-high retaining wall and 6-foot-high fence for an approximate total combined height of approximately 14 feet in these areas here. It also includes 500 square feet of new permeable paving, one new uncovered parking space, and site landscaping. In addition, as part of the research for this project, it was discovered that this fence in this location over here is not permitted and is proposed to be removed as this is in the required setback and over height. That was not mentioned in the staff report because that was discovered at a later date. So the request before you today is for a modification to permit a combined wall and fence height of approximately 14 feet within the required setbacks right in this location here. The ordinance requires that all fences in this zone be limited in the required setbacks to 8 feet. It's staff's position that the modification being requested will allow for expanded use of the outdoor living space right here, and that the wall and fence height will provide a safety barrier as well as will provide privacy for the neighbors. Staff would like the staff hearing officer to approve it with the conditions outlined in the staff report, which includes the reduction of a hedge height within 10 feet of the driveway to 3.5 feet, and that was requested by transportation planning as part of the new parking space proposed in this location. There are other things that are proposed in the conditions: removal of a shed in the setback, as well as removal of stored items in the garage in the setbacks, reduction of the hedge height that would comply with the ordinance, other than the legal nonconforming height of 5 feet for a combined wall hedge in these locations that are existing and were recognized as legal nonconforming in prior zoning reports. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I do, regarding question or condition 4, where it says the wall and hedge height in the front yards are to be reduced to the legal nonconforming height of 5 feet. And then it says, and all other hedges determined not to be legal nonconforming must comply with the code. So is that the ones on the back property line, or which ones are, which ones?
There are hedges along here that may be the neighbor's hedge, and so, but anything that doesn't comply, that would be over the 8-foot height in here, we would want that to be reduced to the conforming height of 8 feet. The locations in here, the zoning report recognized these hedge and a combined wall hedge height of 5 feet maximum, and some of them are over that. So those are the ones we would want to comply, as well as any other ones that don't comply. This, however, that within the 10 feet, even though it was recognized as legal nonconforming, once they implemented this new parking and covered parking space, that became a visibility issue, and transportation needed that to be lowered in order to accommodate that parking space.
Okay, then what about this gate here? It's right on the property line, right near a corner, and I understand it has been on a previous permit, but now they're proposing to use it as parking. Does transportation have any concerns regarding the gate right on the property line with the corner and now
I checked
parking?
with transportation planning, and they said they do not have a problem with that. It was legally constructed in 1999. It is a electric gate, and they are fine with it remaining as long as the hedge is reduced to the 3.5 feet in height.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, those are all my questions for right now. If you'd like to state your name for the record. And
Brian Hofer, the architect.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to just simply describe the project in that it's the owners wish to basically, as was mentioned, create a more usable space in the yard, and so it's essentially lowering the height of an existing wall. I mean, with a new wall, as opposed to adding any additional height to either the wall or the existing fence that's there. So it's due to the wording of the ordinance, it is required to have a modification, but I think for the impact on the neighborhood, it will be negligible. And it's only going to be visible within the private yard space for the owner. The owner is he's a landscaper, and he takes a lot of pride in his yard, as I think some of the neighbors have commented on his front yard. and he's looking forward to developing his backyard landscaping in a similar fashion.
Okay. When I went out to the site the other day, I noticed that parking is occurring right now in this area, and this talks about existing landscaping. Can you explain? And I didn't get a landscape plan with the submitted set. So what is your vision regarding this area? And then the driveway here is 15 feet. The minimum required is 10. So what's your vision in this area up front here?
Well, the vision is to provide the permeable paving as it's shown well, I think the usable portion would be restricted by, this is actually an existing, I think he has temporarily taken that was a tree out and he's intending to put it back. But my understanding is that this was existing landscaping prior to some of the work that's already begun on the project, which it's acknowledged that they should not have proceeded with the work. Mm-hmm. But it's intended to be brought back to a landscape zone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that was my questions for right now. I'd like to open the public comment. And
Yes.
you're here for 102 North Milpas. Okay, Kellum DeForest.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to, as you probably know, I'm most interested in Santa Barbara history and preservation. And of course, and what concerns me about this project is the stone walls, which probably, as I can remember, I think, when was this house built? Do you know? When was the existing structure put in there?
I think it's the 20s.
But
I think
the
that-
20s?
I think so.
Yeah, yes, it does. From my memory, it seems that it's been there for a long there. But the stone walls especially, and I gather you're not going to do anything with the stone walls on Melpas Street.
That's correct.
But all the stonework, in at least done prior to the Second World War in Santa Barbara, was very carefully done. We had very important and artful stonemasons, and I don't know who, and the vision on, at least on Melpas Street, is these stone, on that section of Melpas Street are the stone walls that are used to support the banks there. So, and am I hearing that you're going to have to remove those steps on the corner? No?
What the staff had explained
Yeah.
in their presentation was there's an existing, it says, right here, this white fence was put on the steps without the benefits of permits.
Oh,
So it's this fence here, and here's a better photo of it. This fence here will be
yeah.
removed.
Oh, that
Yeah, so
could go. Obviously,
Yeah.
the steps, I mean, certainly a handrail would be useful for those steps, but thing. And then back on the side, how much of the historic stonework is being removed? I mean,
the project description includes the removal of this entire wall in this area and this area. I would like.
Isn't it a stone block wall?
I'd like staff to respond to that because I did have questions regarding what kind of archaeological and historic review was done. So I think staff might have some response to that question.
As far as the archaeological, a letter report was required, which was submitted and approved, and there are no issues regarding the archaeological resources at the property. In regards to the wall, we have checked with the historian, and the only areas of concern are the two walls along, right here along Milpas Street and along Carrillo, and the rest is not significant according to the historian, and that were not an issue. If they did propose any changes to the walls, the stone walls facing Milpas or Carrillo at the front, they would require review and a structures report prior to any alteration, but those are not being proposed to be removed or altered in any way.
So per our urban historian, Jake, he's reviewed this, and he doesn't have concerns regarding the removal of these rear walls. Okay.
Here's
And
some pictures.
Does he
They're
not
really-
think they were historic?
No, he did not determine those to be historic. It was the only ones along the Milpas
I mean,
Carrillo
is it,
frontage.
I'm wondering if they weren't historic because they weren't visible, or they weren't part of the original historic wall.
The information he did relay to staff was that the historic significance was the stonework at the front of the property,
Right,
because
yeah.
those were
I
two things
know
that
where
were
Mr. Jacobus is
consistently done on Milpas Street that they didn't want
coming from, but
as part of the historic nature.
well, I would recommend that if any of these big cut stones have to be removed anywhere, they should be reused.
Okay. Do you have any additional comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I was just concerned about the stonework, and I didn't know how much was going to have to be removed, especially the stonework on Milpas and Carrillo.
Yeah, the only visible alterations from Carrillo and Milpas is going to be the lowering of the hedge portion.
Yeah,
the
well,
combined
that's
heights,
fine.
Yeah,
That's
and then the removal of this existing wrought iron fence.
Right, which I approve of. They don't belong. Historically, they're not part of the
Okay, great.
streetscape.
This is the public hearing for 10002 North Milpas Street. Are you here for that item? Which item are you here for?
I'm here for the item that I was late for, the first item.
Oh, okay, so after the hearing, the staff planner can catch you up on what occurred for that. So I'll close the public hearing on 10002 North Milpas Street. Like I said, I went out to the site and visited and drove around the area, and I agree that the stonework in the front and the presence on Carrillo and Milpas Street is real important, and I'm glad you're not proposing to change that. My comments, as I questioned in the comment period when I was asking you regarding this paved area, I understand that you're removing the existing paved area and putting permeable paving. Still, we'd like to reduce the amount of paving as much as possible, and I understand you're planning for a proposed pool in this area. I would like to see the driveway area reduced down to the minimum 10 feet, and I'll leave it up to you to decide how it comes in. And I imagine one of the reasons why it is so wide, 15 feet, is to accommodate a walkway also, but I think it could be provided either separately or this area here could be reduced. I'd also like to see some kind of either barrier or planter or border, I guess is the other name, to discourage parking in the front setback. That's not allowed by our code unless a modification is requested. It is allowed in the remaining front yard if it's screened and all that kind of stuff, but just the front setback area, I'd like to see some kind of barrier or border put up in that area. And also, especially since your site plan indicates that this area here, it looks like this area, and then the area back here is part of your open yard, your private outdoor living space requirement. So that would be another reason why I'd want some kind of barrier in this area to prevent parking to occur over time. So that's another reason for that. I see you're looking for you. Do you have a comment?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm trying to...
This way. There you go.
The driveway area reduction and the barrier, do you want those to be a direction to the single-family design board to work with the applicant to accomplish those?
Yeah, I was going to actually add it as a condition because I noticed that the SFDB's comments, the Single Family Design Board comments, was they look forward to reviewing a site landscape and irrigation plan. So I just thought as part of that can be included on that plan. So, and in regards to the historic resources, I accept Jake's recommendations on the significance of the site walls, and if in his opinion, being our urban historian, he's reviewed it and went to the site and looked at it and believed these walls were not significant, I accept his determination as part of the environmental review, and that this project would not cause an impact to historic resources for the rear wall. So with those comments, I can make the findings outlined. Are there findings? Am I missing a page in my staff report?
I'm missing a page too. I don't have the findings.
Kathy, can you pull up can you pull up, oh, you have the here. She has the,
I have the report, sorry.
Page 2 didn't get copied.
okay, so the findings, let me read it. Okay, findings and conditions. The staff hearing officer finds that the modifications are consistent with the purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance and are necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The proposed retaining wall system will allow for an expanded, flat, usable open yard area for the residents with a fence on top to provide a safety barrier and maintaining the existing level of privacy in the yard. I would like to also add the comment that it was explained in the staff report that the end result, that the top elevation of the wall will not be any different than it is now. It's going lower, and then from the neighbor's property, what they will see, it's still going to be a 6-foot fence on top of there. So I would like that reflected in the findings that although it does exceed our allowed maximum height of 8 feet, it's not changing the existing situation from off-site areas. Because this is tucked behind, so the residences are going to be the only one who see the wall. It's not visible from the street. So in terms of its off-site impacts, there'll be no change. So,
That's correct.
oops, I wrote on your original. Sorry.
Could you comment on the color of the, if it's going to be this? I hope it's not going to be this kind of wrought iron fencing that is a little not very Santa Barbara-ish.
There's no wrought iron in the project.
No, you're removing all of this stuff.
That's one of the conditions, yes.
So what is the material of the fencing that you're putting up?
It's explained on the site plan here as being a new 6-foot-high wood fence, and then the retaining wall underneath. So the fence on top is going to be wood. Below it'll be the retaining wall.
Yeah.
But in regards to the visual part of it, that's the Single Family Design Board's purview. So when it returns to the Single Family Design Board, they'll be
We'll talk
commenting
about the color and the material of the wall.
yes. So I would recommend you stay informed of when it's going back to the Single Family Design Board and present those comments then. I'm giving it the land use approval to allow it to be the certain height, and they'll do the visual
Yeah,
aspects.
the material of the fence is not your purview. Correct?
Yes. I was just finishing writing my last thought process. Okay, so I'll make those findings as revised, and then subject to the conditions of approval, the 4 that were in the written staff report, the additional one that staff recommended regarding removing this unpermitted fence, and then in the front on the corner of Milpas and Carrillo Street, and then also add a condition that the landscape plan include some type of barrier or border between the paved driveway area and the landscaped area in the front yard to prevent parking in this area, and then also to reduce the driveway width to the minimum to 10 feet. And with those 3 added conditions, I approve your project, and my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And that appeal is filed at the planning counter here versus City Hall. A lot of the other boards and commissions' appeals are filed at City Hall. The Planning Commission also has oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could also call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those were to occur, Ms. LeConte would contact you. Okay?
Okay?
Thank you. And since the last item, 1727 Prospect Avenue, was continued, I adjourn the meeting. Thanks.